Continuing on in chapter 11. Who's Tony? And suddenly Danny had one of those flashes of understanding that frightened him most of all. It was like a sudden glimpse of some incomprehensible machine that might be safe or might be deadly dangerous. He was too young to know which. He was too young to understand. "What's wrong?" he cried. "You're asking me all this because you're worried, aren't you? Why are you worried about me? Why are you worried about us?" Halloran put his large dark hands on the small boy's shoulders. "Stop," he said. "It's probably nothing. But if it is something, well, you've got a large thing in your head, Danny. You've got to do a lot of growing yet before you catch up to it, I guess. You've got to be brave about it." "But I don't understand things," Danny burst out. "I do, but I don't. People, they feel things, and I feel them, but I don't know what I'm feeling." He looked down at his lap wretchedly. "I wish I could read. Sometimes Tony shows me signs, and I can hardly read any of them." "Who's Tony?" Halloran asked again. "Mommy and Daddy call him my invisible playmate," Danny said, reciting the words carefully. "But he's really real. At least I think he is. Sometimes when I try real hard to understand things, he comes. He says, 'Danny, I want to show you something.' And it's like I pass out. Only there are dreams, like you said." He looked at Halloran and swallowed. "They used to be nice, but now I can't remember the word for dreams that scare you and make you cry." "Nightmares?" Halloran asked. "Yes, that's right, nightmares." "About this place? About the Overlook?" Danny looked down at his thumb-sucking hand again. "Yes," he whispered. Then he spoke shrilly, looking up into Halloran's face. "But I can't tell my daddy, and you can't either. He has to have this job because it's the only one Uncle Al could get for him, and he has to finish his play or he might start doing the bad thing again, and I know what that is. It's getting drunk. That's what it is. It's when he used to always be drunk, and that was a bad thing to do." He stopped on the verge of tears. "Shh," Halloran said, and pulled Danny's face against the rough serge of his jacket. It smelled faintly of mothballs. "That's all right, son, and if that thumb likes your mouth, let it go where it wants." But his face was troubled. He said, "What you got, son, I call it shining on. The Bible calls it having visions, and there's scientists that call it precognition. I've read up on it, son. I've studied on it. They all mean seeing the future. Do you understand that?" Danny nodded against Halloran's coat. "I remember the strongest shine I ever had that way. I'm not liable to forget. It was 1955. I was still in the army then, stationed overseas in West Germany. It was an hour before supper, and I was standing by the sink, giving one of them KPs hell for taking too much of the potato along with the peel. I says, 'Here, let me show you how that's done.' He held out the potato and the peeler, and then the whole kitchen was gone. Bang, just like that. You say you see this guy Tony before? Well, before you have dreams?" Danny nodded. Halloran put an arm around him. "With me, it's smelling oranges. All that afternoon I'd been smelling them and thinking nothing of it because they were on the menu for that night. We had 30 crates of Valencias. Everybody in the damn kitchen was smelling oranges that night. For a minute, it was like I had just passed out. And then I heard an explosion and saw flames. There was people screaming, sirens, and I heard this hissing noise that could only be steam. Then it seemed like I got a little closer to whatever it was, and I saw a railroad car off the tracks and laying on its side with Georgia and South Carolina Railroad written on it. And I knew like a flash that my brother Carl was on that train, and it jumped the tracks, and Carl was dead, just like that. Then it was gone, and here's this scared, stupid little KP in front of me still holding out that potato and that peeler. He says, 'Are you okay, Sarge?' And I says, 'No, my brother's just been killed down in Georgia.' And when I finally got my mama on the overseas telephone, she told me how it was. But see, boy, I already knew how it was." He shook his head slowly as if dismissing the memory and looked down at the wide-eyed boy. "But the thing you got to remember, my boy, is this. Those things don't always come true. I remember just 4 years ago I had a job cooking at a boys' camp up in Maine on Long Lake. So I am sitting by the boarding gate at Logan Airport in Boston, just waiting to get on my flight, and I start to smell oranges. So I say to myself, I smell oranges, for the first time in maybe 5 years. So I say to myself, my God, what's coming from this crazy late show now? And I got down to the bathroom and sat on one of the toilets to be private. I never did black out, but I started to get this feeling stronger and stronger that my plane was going to crash. Then the feeling went away and the smell of oranges, and I knew it was over. I went back to the Delta Airlines desk and changed my flight to 3 hours later. And do you know what happened?" "What?" Danny whispered. "Nothing," Halloran said and laughed. He was relieved to see the boy smile a little too. Not one single thing. That old plane landed right on time and without a single bump or bruise. So you see, sometimes those feelings don't come to anything. Oh, Danny said. Or you take the racetrack. I go a lot and I usually do pretty well. I stand by the rail and when they go by the starting gate and sometimes I get a little shine about this horse or that one, usually those feelings help me get real well. I always tell myself that someday I'm going to get 3 at once on 3 long shots and make enough on the trifecta to retire early. It ain't happened yet, but there's plenty of times I've come home from the track on a Shanks mare instead of in a taxi cab with my wallet swollen up. Nobody shines on all the time except maybe for God up in heaven. Yes, sir, Danny said, thinking of the time almost a year ago when Tony had showed him a new baby lying in a crib at their house in Stovington. He had been very excited about that and had waited, knowing that it took time, but there had been no new baby. Now you listen, Halloran said, and took both of Danny's hands in his own. I've had some bad dreams here, and I've had some bad feelings. I've worked here 2 seasons now, and maybe a dozen times I've had, well, nightmares. And maybe half a dozen times I've thought I'd seen things. Now I won't say what. It ain't for a little boy just like you, just nasty things. Once it had something to do with those damn hedges clipped to look like animals. Another time there was a maid, Dolores Vickery her name was, and she had a little shine to her, but I don't think she knew it. Mr. Ullman fired her. Do you know what that is, Doc? Yes, sir, Danny said candidly. My daddy got fired from his teaching job, and that's why we're in Colorado, I guess. Well, Ullman fired her on account of her saying she'd seen something in one of the rooms where a bad thing happened. That was in room 217, and I want you to promise me you won't go in there, Danny. Not all winter. Steer right clear. All right, Danny said. Did the lady, the maiden, did she ask you to go look? Yes, she did, and there was a bad thing there, but I don't think it was a bad thing that could hurt anyone, Danny. That's what I'm trying to say. People who shine can sometimes see things that are going to happen, and I think sometimes they can see things that did happen. But they're just like pictures in a book. Did you ever see a picture in a book that scared you, Danny? Yes, he said, thinking of the story of Bluebeard and the picture where Bluebeard's new wife opens the door and sees all the heads. But you knew it couldn't hurt you, didn't you? Yes, Danny said, a little dubious. Well, that's how it is in this hotel. I don't know why, but it seems like all the bad things that ever happened here, there's little pieces of those things still laying around like fingernail clippings or the boogers that somebody nasty just wiped under a chair. I don't know why it should be just here. There's bad goings on in just about every hotel in the world, I guess. And I've worked in a lot of them and had no trouble. Only here. But Danny, I don't think those things can hurt anybody. He emphasized each word in the sentence with a mild shake of the boy's shoulders. So if you should see something in a hallway or a room or outside by these hedges, just look the other way, and when you look back, it'll be gone. Are you digging me now? Yes, Danny said. He felt much better, soothed. He got up on his knees, kissed Halloran's cheek, and gave him a big, hard hug. Halloran hugged him back. When he released the boy, he asked, Your folks, they don't shine, do they? No, I don't think so. I tried them like I did you, Halloran said. Your mama jumped just the tiniest bit. I think all mothers shine a little, you know, at least until their kids grow up enough to watch out for themselves. Your dad? Halloran paused momentarily. He had probed at the boy's father, and he just didn't know. It wasn't like meeting someone who had the shine or somebody who definitely did not. Poking at Danny's father had been strange, as if Jack Torrance had something that he was hiding, or something he was holding in so deeply submerged in himself that it was impossible to get to. I don't think he shines at all, Halloran finished. So you don't worry about them. You just take care of you. I don't think there's anything here that can hurt you. So just be cool, okay? Okay. Danny. Danny. Hey, Doc. Danny looked around. That's Mom. She wants me. I have to go. I know you do, Halloran said. You have a good time here, Danny. Best you can, anyway. I will. Thanks, Mr. Halloran. I feel a lot better. The smiling thought came into his mind. Dick to my friends. Yes, Dick. Okay. Their eyes met, and Dick Halloran winked. Danny scrambled across the seat of the car and opened the passenger side door. As he was getting out, Halloran said, Danny? What? If there is trouble, you give a call. A big, loud holler like the one you gave a few minutes ago. I might hear you even way down in Florida, and if I do, I'll come on the run. Okay, Danny said and smiled. You take care, big boy. I will. Danny slammed the door and ran across the parking lot toward the porch where Wendy stood, holding her elbows against the chill wind. Halloran watched, the big grin slowly fading. I don't think there's anything here that can hurt you. I don't think. But what if he was wrong? He had known that this was his last season at the Overlook ever since he had seen that thing in the bathtub of room 217. It had been worse than any picture in any book, and from here, the boy running to his mother looked so small. I don't think. His eyes drifted down to the topiary animals. Abruptly, he started the car and put it in gear and drove away, trying not to look back. And of course he did, and of course the porch was empty. They had gone back inside. It was as if the Overlook had swallowed them.